Hello YouTube, today we are going to discuss yet another weak point. Welcome to this new installment of Weak Point Wednesday, and we are talking forearms. So, forearms, huh? A lot of people will tell you that forearms are genetic, you either have big forearms or you don't. I personally don't subscribe to that mentality. That's not surprising, I don't really believe in that type of stuff. I do believe that there are certain body parts that are going to be much easier to develop if you have good genetics for them. But nothing is impossible, and there is no such thing as a body part that will refuse to grow. You can always find a way to make them grow. For forearms, what people talk about when they say good genetics is usually insertion, meaning that, of course, the longer the muscle is, the more potential for size. There's also a part with forearm size that is going to come down to illusion tactics. Because the bigger your wrist, the smaller your forearm looks. So the way to think about it is, because your wrist is right there, it's in direct competition with the forearm, right? So even if you have a massive forearm, if the wrist is also massive, it's going to give it that blocky aspect where it's going to be completely straight with no curves. And what works with bodybuilding is this, it's that curvature. It's the same for quads. You want to have what they call the sweep, that 3D effect where you have the muscles that pop that much more. Why? Because they're round, everything is round. This is why pro bodybuilders inject synthol. This is why they use site enhancement oil, because it makes the muscle pop, it gives it that bubble aspect. For forearms, personally my issue is the front of the forearm. I have a brachialis that's pretty well developed. I did a lot of gripper back in the day, but this right there is not as big as I would like it to be. The inside of the forearm for me, especially this portion here, has a lot of meat on it because I do a ton of curls, and it developed quite well. And if you look at it like this, it's quite wide on both sides. And because my wrist is so tiny, it looks big. But my measurement is not that big. I have 13 inches forearms, 13 and a half. It's because my wrists are 6.5. They are actually much smaller than average. Because I think the average in the US is 7.2. So 6.5 is quite small, and I've always had small wrists. So it also means that I won't have to build that big of forearms to make them look massive. I want to get to 15 inches. It's going to take a long, long time because these are small body parts, but it's doable. So personally, what do I do for my weak point? What do I do for my forearms? Unless most people, I use straps, and I don't think that using straps is going to damage your ability to train your forearms. Why? Because what people use straps for is usually isometric holds, meaning you're just holding the bar. And I'm not saying this is not a good way to build your forearms, it is, but it's not the end all be all. You need wrist flexions, you need elbow flexions, you need to work every single angle of the forearm. This is why just doing pulls, pull-ups, rows, and thinking you're going to get great forearm development from it doesn't work unless you are genetically gifted and anything will work for your forearms. Then you will have to have dedicated isolation movements for the forearms. Personally, I like to do a ton of finger curls. I like to do a lot of wrist curls. My issue with wrist curls is that personally they do not agree with my wrists. The only thing I've ever found that agreed with my wrists for wrist curls was if I can rest the weight and my arm on the leg and do wrist curls like this with fixed dumbbells, meaning that it's not a dumbbell that's adjustable. The issue when you stack weight on the dumbbell is that the weight rotates because of the collars. So when you do this, you're not really moving the weight is rotating, so it feels completely different than when the weight is solid, like in a commercial gym. So when I moved to my home gym and I didn't have all those dumbbells available, I had to find other ways. So I do standing wrist curls behind the back. I do finger curls, which I love, and I will make a tutorial video on them, which are great for the forearm. And I do reverse curls. Those are my isolation movements for the forearms that I do on my arm days. After that, I do a ton of isometric pulls and isometric holds, which usually are pulls because I'm not just going to grab the bar from the rack. I actually do something as I work my grip. I like to do them also with accessory movements. So I will do cone grips, which is where I actually put the bar on the rack and I lift it from the side with a twist of the forearm and I squeeze it as much as possible for 15 seconds. I do the same with a towel. All of these exercises I'm talking about, they're in the Road to Bigger Forearm playlist. So if you need to get a good idea of what I'm talking about right now, one click away, you'll get to see everything I do for them. And one last thing that I've started doing that I really like, and that it's one of those things where there's always something new to discover. I've known about them for a long time, but I never really gave them a try because I didn't care. Dead hangs. They are fairly good for the forearms. I like to pre-pump, so I will use an elastic, like one of these guys here, and I will pre-pump my forearm, and then I will do the dead hang, and it feels like everything is nice and stretching, and then the second I'm done, I do the pump again to get some blood in there. As far as weighted stretch goes, I think it's a good thing. And I think a lot of people, when they say that the only thing you need for forearms is deadlift and pulls and rows, they don't really realize it, but what they're talking about is weighted stretch, is grabbing onto something that stretches the arm, because the truth is, it's not the action of gripping the weight that's making your forearm bigger, because if it was, you could just do this. Like you could grip the air as hard as possible, but the second there is something in your hand that you're grasping that is pulling on the muscle, now there is hypertrophy occurring. I will make other videos about that because those are topics that need to be developed, but that's pretty much it for this video on forearm size. If you have any tips on how to work your forearms in the comments, please let me and us in the community know. And that's all I have on the topic. So thank you for watching this video and have a good day.